Well, hello, everybody. It's great to see you. We have a semi-full house today. It's nice to have some of our team of coaches here to talk about language and culture. So today we're going to talk about foreign languages and the use of English around the world and how the language we speak shapes our culture and our world. Jonathan, you like to remind us that, what we say colors our experience and we're responsible for what we say. And whether we do that in English and Spanish and French or Russian or whatever language we're saying. So I'm looking forward to delving into this topic. Welcome, everybody.
Mhm.
So we start with slides and we have a couple quick ones. Let's see if I can share my screen. Next week, we're doing another live stream. So that'll be fun. We'll plan for that. And let me go ahead and share for this week. Let's go to present mode. Woohoo! Okay, language and culture. Don't you love when you come to one of these crossroads and it has all these different signs?
Hmm.
It'll say, Reno, Nevada this way, Paris this way, Mexico City this way. So, yeah, we are a melting pot here in the United States, but I think there's been so much migration, it might be harder to find places that are not melting pots. So, been a lot of migration, and I guess language is going to be a part of that. So, yeah. Okay, here's some things that'll prime the pump for our conversation. So, I was finding these little notes, like the one on the right, those are all ways to say thank you. Okay, danke is Dutch, thank you is English, merci is French, grazie is Italian, gracias we know is Spanish. Dank Joel, I forget which one that is.
I think that's Dutch and
Oh,
Danke is German.
Danke is German. Okay, thank you. Yep, I
Yeah.
got it wrong. And how, I think that's Japanese at the bottom. So, we have
Yeah.
different greetings and customs. Brian and I were talking about, he's done 4 countries in about 2 years. But, when you put prayer hands together or nod, or when you wave, when you smile, that works in every language around the world. There are some greetings that are universal between humans. A lot of social customs are the same way. Sit down, have some tea, giving somebody a a hug as they arrive or depart. There are some fun idioms that are unique to different languages, and as well as unique words, and then the associated ideas. Accents are fun. So sometimes it can be hard to hear with accents. I noticed as I interviewed a young man who has started a business in Pakistan. He started it in Germany and he's back to Pakistan to be running it and working with people. He has associates in Russia, in Europe, and then Turkey. And he speaks so fast with kind of a Pakistani accent. I guess it's a little bit sing-song. And I was thinking, how is he managing? But he does animated videos, and most of that language is around design technology, and that's almost all English. So if we're going to have a global workforce, we have to work these things out, huh? And then providing some grace to non-native speakers. Okay. Let's go to some memes now that we've primed our conversation. I have 3 of them for you today. The first one you should understand, Jonathan, is types of headaches. The migraine, the hypertension, the stress, and the conjugating verbs in Spanish headache. It seems to be the worst one. And then in English, we don't use male and female, pronouns for words. But here, German speakers, soap is feminine. French speakers, no, soap is masculine. English, soap is soap. We don't have any male or female parts to the word soap. And then last, this is a word I don't know if I could say it. Kuchi sabishi. And this is a word that says when you're not hungry, but you eat because your mouth is lonely. So I've never thought of a mouth being lonely before, but they think about that in Japan. Okay, so thank you so much for the little trip around the slides, and I think we've primed the pump for today's conversation. I know, Brian, you had some thoughts prepared, so I'd love to hear you, our digital nomad, world globetrotter, talk about language and culture.
Yeah, so let's get into it. Let me see here. So there's a language called Quechua, which is a South American language.
Okay.
And I want to talk about this because I think it's a good way to show how a certain language can shape your whole culture, your whole worldview. Okay. Now, I might be getting some of the small details wrong. Don't worry about that. If there's anyone watching this who wants to correct me, just go
Apologies
with,
in advance. Write your comments below.
yeah, just go with the journey and just, appreciate the big picture. But one of the common ways that they say thank you in Quechua is their phrase is, "You are the dove of my heart."
Oh.
That's a normal way to say thank you. So I want us to think about that. Think of how much that would change American culture if that's what people said instead of thank you. I think that would be a cultural revolution. Like, I think that would just make people interact with each other very differently. I think it would make people be more respectful or more caring. I mean, that's just kind of conveyed in the language. And if everyone was speaking that, it creates that new culture, right? So I think that's a good way to look at it. Or let's think of a different example. Let's say, what if the normal default way to say thank you in American culture was God is good? You know, I mean, how would that change the culture? So, like, someone gives you something, you appreciate it, so you say God is good. That's just like how we say thank you. Think of how much this would change things. And I think this gives you a sort of a feeling, sort of a sense of how much language shapes our worldview and our culture and our reality. So I've came up with some other examples that I thought of. So instead of the word like thinking or feeling, what if this was how we express this in our language? What if we said, I'm inner seeing, like INNER, I'm inner seeing a thought. I'm inner seeing a feeling. I mean, can you feel like how that would change everyone's worldview if they use that phrase, if that was the default phrase? It would kind of shift people more into a consciousness, more into a worldview of, or a view of reality where you think about seeing within. Because the whole language is structured that way to where that's how you're cognizing these things. That's how you're thinking of these concepts, right? So here's another one. So what if the term for like physical movement, moving your body, what if our way of saying that was body willing? Like I body willed myself down the block, meaning I used my will to move my body down the block. Like, what if that was our way of saying it? Everyone would think of movement differently, right? So this kind of like shows you these different languages, these different concepts, these different words that exist in different languages. It really shapes your view of reality. It shapes your thoughts and feelings as you speak to other people, as you communicate in the language. I mean, it's a powerful thing. So I think it's a good topic. Someone on my Facebook brought up the point recently, and they actually were talking about Quechua, which gave me the idea for bringing that up tonight. And he was saying he wanted to learn Quechua because he thinks he could think different thoughts in that language that he can't really think in English,
Mhm, mhm.
and maybe even feel different feelings. And, later, Jonathan, I want to throw it over to you and see if you feel that way about Spanish in Mexico. Maybe there's certain thoughts you feel like you can have in Spanish, but not really in English, or certain feelings.
Mhm.
When you're speaking that language, it just feels different than it would if you were saying it in English. So I'll throw that over to you later. Um, but yeah, all these things really, yeah, just catch it. All these things, I mean, it shapes the people. Language shapes the people. It shapes the culture. It shapes the view of reality.
Mhm.
And actually, in one way, Earth is really blessed to have so many different cultures. Like we actually have so many different
Mhm.
languages and worldviews and thoughts and feelings that come from all that that you can explore and study, which is pretty cool. Um, so yeah, I'll talk about a couple different cultural things. So Anthony Bourdain, do you guys all know who Anthony Bourdain is?
No, I'm ignorant on that guy.
Okay. He had a travel show like on TV where he traveled to different countries and he was a foodie. So he would
Mm.
eat the different cuisines in all the different countries and he would just film it and he would just talk about the experience, and that was his show. And actually, he said in a clip, one of his favorite countries was Vietnam.
Mhm.
And so I'll talk about an interesting experience he had speaking to some locals. Um, he went there and he asked them kind of how they felt about the Vietnam War. So he was talking to a group of locals and he asked them, so do you guys have resentment towards Americans? Like, how do you feel about this? And the locals he was talking to were like, no, of course not. And they were kind of like, don't flatter yourself. We fought so many wars. Like, you were just one of the latest ones. We fought with
One
China.
chapter in history.
We fought with Cambodia. We fought with China again. Like, and he said, they actually said their attitude was, okay, yesterday we were fighting. No problem. There's peace today. So today we eat together. No problem. Like, there's no, in the people he met, like in with those locals in Vietnam culture, there was no feeling of lasting resentment. It was this feeling of, well, that was yesterday. Today we're cool. Today we eat together. If we fight again tomorrow, okay, then we'll kill each other tomorrow. Like it just kind of, and I think in American culture, we imagine there would be lasting resentment. That's more of an American cultural thing. So just looking at these different sort of phenomena, these different dynamics of how different cultures handle things, and a lot of it is connected to the language that people speak, right? So I could go on, but I want to give other people a chance to speak. So I don't know, Jonathan, do you want to answer that question?
You want to
Um,
receive this, or do you want to wait for your turn, Jonathan?
I can give you an idea actually when it
okay,
comes, and then I would like Dean to go first. He has some.
okay,
I know he's a very genius in this realm. But before that, let me tell you something about the difference between Spanish and English for me. As a second language for me is English, right?
yeah,
But actually, there's no substitution or like exact translation for I'll look forward to in Spanish.
Mm.
So when I came across I look forward to, actually that was a revolution in my experience of life. I was like, oh, I look forward to that, because in Spanish there's no such a thing. You can craft something, but it's going to sound very cheesy and like it doesn't sound good by any means. So when I came across, I look forward to. I was like, oh, this is it. English is a very straightforward, not nonsense language, for
Mhm.
good
yeah,
or for bad, but it's very efficient,
Mhm.
and that's something that I learned.
Mhm.
And in Spanish, we have some. It's a very it's a romance language, you know? Is that the right word?
Yes, it is.
So
Sure.
we play with the words, we take you to
Mhm.
this place, and then we take you to this other place, and then by the next thing you know, you're in love with us. So like, and then you eat our food. It's a very tricky language. But yeah, Dean, you got this.
Before we go to Dean, I was trying to imagine two guys in a jujitsu studio and thanking them for the match, saying, "You are the dove of my heart." I couldn't quite get the image to
Yeah.
come together,
Yeah.
but I imagine it might happen. Go ahead, Dean.
Well, I don't know that I have anything to say about foreign languages, but I thought I might talk a little bit about language and then talk about the use of language in coaching application for
Here
just
we
a moment.
go. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to start by telling Jonathan I recently ordered from Amazon the selected poems of Pablo Neruda, who was a South American poet.
Mhm.
And he was, let's say, prolific to the point where his selected poems, not his collected poems, not all of them, his selected poems is 1,000 pages long.
Mm.
Right? But it's very interesting because Neruda is, sort of associated with a kind of intensity and passion, and it must be quite a challenge to take the poetry from a South American culture and translate it into the language of a Northern European people.
Mhm.
And I don't think that's kind of irrelevant to what we're talking about.
Mhm.
So I think the first thing I wanted to say about language is that we use it all the time, but most of us don't think about what it is. Okay. And that it's really important to think that language is not just mundane, but it has a metaphysical kind of power to it.
Mhm.
That, I mean, part of what it means to be a poet is to help people to understand the incantatory nature of language. That when you are writing a poem, you are trying to create an incantation that brings a new reality into the world and into the spirit of the reader. William Stafford makes this distinction very early on in his book called Writing the Australian Crawl about what he calls mundane language and the hidden language. And the lines between those are very blurry. And there's a reason, for example, that the Hebrews didn't say the name of God, right? Because as modern people, if we think about language at all, it's a dead tool, when in reality it's an intrinsic part of sort of the human spiritual experience, and it's a way that we create realities for ourselves.
Mhm.
Maybe this is most obvious in social realities, right? Like you couldn't build a church, you couldn't build a business, you couldn't build any kind of relationship in without the ability to create something new together. And so I think when we think about language in its role as really the bedrock of relationships, we can kind of see how like every social reality is rooted in this almost unexplainable ability that people have to make sounds come out of their face, and and out of those sounds communicate this ineffable thing we call meaning, right? To share that thing. But more importantly, even, is that the language we use when we talk to ourselves and about ourselves, and Brian was kind of getting at this. I think when Brian was giving the examples of body willing and all of that, he's sort of acting right there as a poet in the sense that he's trying to break people out of their linguistic ruts, right? So like when you break that rut, you open possibilities for people, because when people can talk about something differently, they can act differently, right? So I think a lot about kind of the relationship between our unconscious selves, our unconscious minds, and the conscious self, and how much like we exist. So much of us exists unconsciously. That the unconscious is sort of the realm of the image and the realm of the impulse and the shadow and the intuition and the feeling. And the conscious mind is built around logos, which is language, right? So uh sort of the process of growth is often having the courage and having, if necessary, a guide like a coach to help you to begin moving into that realm of yourself where language is not, and bringing to it this sort of principle of logos, of order that we express through language, right? So that you have lots of beliefs, you have limiting beliefs, you have feelings, you have assumptions that are down there in the dark waters of your mind. And they're down there and they're controlling you. And up here, you have a linguistic world, which is smaller than the ocean that you are. And so a lot of the process of growth is like jumping into that ocean and beginning to pull things out and subjecting that part of yourself, not subjecting, but integrating that part of yourself with the part that can talk about it. And people on Twitter or whatever are critical of things like therapy and to a certain degree coaching as well. But the great benefit of those kinds of activities for people is that they emphasize helping you to talk about it. Because once you can talk about whatever these things are that you're pulling up out of this ocean inside of you, you can integrate them into like a more aware and conscious way of being. And this is why it's so important for people to try to be aware of their self-talk. Because they're reinforcing ruts. Okay? They're reinforcing ruts, negative ruts, and your cart is most likely to just fall into a rut and go wherever the ruts lead. Okay. And so when people say, well, why does my cart continually end up in this ditch? Part of it is that you've cut ruts in your road that lead to the ditch every time. So I would say, let's get a little poetic here and break some of those ruts and linguistically, and let's find new ways to talk about yourself and your reality and your desires and all of that so that you can align the way that you speak with the destination you're seeking. Because otherwise, you're going to end up in the ditch. And I think a lot of good coaching practice is one way or another helping people to break those ruts. And sometimes it is explicitly saying, let's talk this way. And so maybe part of what a good coach brings to a coaching relationship is a different vocabulary. And so like maybe it's really important for coaches or therapists or people trying to help others to bring to that relationship, if not a fully new vocabulary, a new set of concepts that can be expressed in new language, so that that the old language doesn't become a prison for the client. Those are my thoughts.
So helpful. Coaches from jump can reflect back the language they're hearing. A client says, well, that's a crazy idea. I could never work for myself. Or, I'd never approach that girl because she would never tell me hi. And you hear the limiting beliefs, and you hear the defeated ideas, and you hear some history of the ruts, that the cart is moving along the track for. And when you challenge that language, you challenge the perceptions, you challenge those beliefs. that are kind of invisible to us because we're not really examining language like that. So I know when you look at literature, if you read Russian novels, there's a tone and a tenor to them.
Sure.
And it's not carefree or casual usually.
Right.
And the romance languages, those poets, those writers, start and kind of end with love and tragedy and drama. I was thinking about, and then I'll turn to you, Jonathan. I was talking with someone in New York, and this was years ago, and I was in Silicon Valley, and we were talking about some kind of business transaction. I forget what it was, some kind of consulting work. And so he said, can I get back to you like on Thursday? And I said, no worries. And he goes, yeah, you're definitely in California. And I said, why? And he said, because you brought over that Australian phrase in the surfing culture, no worries. No worries comes from Australian surfers. Like, hey, the waves are there, the waves aren't there. No worries, we'll come back tomorrow. So, and I didn't realize I was using Australian slang. And he goes, yeah, Californians do it all the time. Like, well, I don't live too far from the beach, so I'm not a surfer, but okay. So, yeah, but that was his clue that I was talking to him from California. So, Jonathan, you have some thoughts about language and culture and coaching language and so on.
I have lots of thoughts. We actually, it seems like California loves Australian influence. We
Mm.
had this, while I was living in California, there was this governor of California, Arnold Schwarzenegger. So that
Mhm.
guy is from Australia. So I wouldn't be surprised if we used a lot of
He's
Australian
from
stuff here.
Austria, not Australia.
Australia. I thought he was from Australia.
No, from
So if somebody's
Austria.
freaking out,
Yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
But
That's why he had that guttural accent for so long in his early movies. He
mm,
did weightlifting, but not a lot of talking because English was so hard for him.
it is a hard language to. Uh, Actually, no. There are some other hard, like there are some more difficult ones.
Oh, sure,
But it is
Chinese.
still a, it
Chinese.
is still a hard language to go from scratch. Now, going back to the language and how it impacts your experience when you're having like coaching or something. Yes, I like one of the main differences. It starts with I am or I feel. Like if you say I am, you're casting a spell on this is you and this is the way you are and this is the way you are going to die and this is the way you're if you have any kids, your kids and grandkids are going to remember you. So let's say somebody says, I am a depressed person. I'm like, whoa, it's a huge statement. It's a very heavy one. It's a very tough one. But if they come to you and they say, hey, I feel depressed. I'm like, okay, we can feelings. You can, it's okay. You can feel the feeling, and then we can go from there. But if they come and then they're like, well, I am this. I'm like, whoa, whoa, relax, man. What the fuck are you talking about? You are this. Do you have an idea that when you say these words, you're casting a spell? I know it sounds like Harry Potter kind of thing, like, but the reality of life is everything that comes out of our mouths, we are casting spells. Now, it is true. It is very difficult to keep track of every word that comes out of our mouths. That's true. But if at least we cut the talking into half, that will put you in a very pleasant situation, regardless of what your current experience is. So one of my pieces of like this is free advice. Okay, you're welcome. If you're having a hard time in your life, just make this exercise. Cut the words that come out of your mouth by half. See what happens the next day. Even if you're going through the worst situation ever, just keep it to yourself and let the universe do the magic. Then, of course, comes the physical world, like the physical activity involved to change your current reality. That's another step. That's the next step, like physical action. but the first one is at least like that's a great one.
Mhm.
And when it comes to culture, I see in my experience, culture it is the way we are shaped. Like we are born into this world and we have no idea because we are just like we're like sponges. So we come to this world and then we are just watching our fingers, licking them. This one is mine.
Mhm.
This one is mine. And then you are a baby, you grab your toe. This one hurts. It's also mine.
Mhm.
Uh, you bite something else that is not part of your body. That one doesn't hurt, and you want to destroy it. But then somebody comes, hey, don't bite this one. It's kind of dangerous. Stay away from it.
Mhm.
So let's say, for example, I watched E.T. for the first time ever a couple nights ago.
Phone home, Jonathan. Phone
Oh,
home.
For the
awesome.
first time ever, I watched E.T., right? And then I was like, wow, no shit. E.T. shaped the culture long time ago. So when I was born into a world that, that was shaped by E.T. and a lot of things made sense. Actually, there was a scene, like one of the first scenes in the movie. There's like teenagers in the
Mhm.
like like the living room area and like the
Mhm.
kitchen area. They're like playing some board game on the table. And there are some teenagers smoking inside of the house, like nothing is happening, the most like the most, random Thursday ever. And
Mhm.
I was like, wow, interesting. Um, I thought that was beautiful because it was like freedom of speech, freedom of work. Like, it's one of the movies that I'm like, we should bring back this to this culture because
Mhm.
everything was so open-minded in that sense. Um, it was beautiful, actually. I really liked it too,
Nice.
and it gave me an idea how cultures shape you. And then, of course, like let's say I have Mexican blood. I was born in United States, but then I was raised in China. I will be speaking fucking Chinese. I will not know the difference between my Mexican blood, my American heritage, and being actually growing up in China. I will be the kind of human that will be speaking Chinese. So wherever you are born in the bubble, it will shape you. So cultures are I will say they are important because that is something that that's when you can see the beauty, different shades of like human lifestyles.
Mhm. Mhm.
The problem now with cultures, I actually do believe this, that cultures are being attacked purposefully so that whoever wants to destroy them for whatever reason, they want to make sure that there's no like meaningful roots, like they just want to disconnect from what it was, and what it was, it's important. So let's say, for example, let me see that I wanted to go to I'm Mexican and I've never been to Ireland, and let's say that I wanted to go to Ireland because I know that in Ireland there is redhead woman with freckles and Guinness beers. And then imagine I go to Ireland and instead of finding leprechauns and redhead women and Guinness beers, I found Mexican Corona beer and some guy from Zimbabwe is the bartender. And there is no redhead people. There is only like people from all over the world. And I'm like, what in the fuck? Like, I think that's horrible. I don't like that idea. I think,
Mhm.
um, so I think there is as we are speaking, I do believe there is something happening that they want to destroy all those. And that was just an example, but I can go back to even the American way used to be different. American culture used to be you work. It was like hardworking people
Mhm.
looking for the best in their communities,
Mhm.
and now it's a scam. So
Mhm.
I do believe that they're attacking cultures so to the point that it's a whole mess, and there's no meaning. Like there's no meaning attached to being a human being, because then you're born into what? Just pure chaos. That is more chaotic than being born into a cocoon of like, okay, at least we do this like this. If you find something better, go ahead. Okay, that makes sense. But if you're born into like, well, I don't know what, we don't even know what to do here, and if you go to other places in the world, they're even worse. That to me, that's more dangerous than having that first experience. And then language. Oh, I love languages. Every language gives you a different way to express something that you want to articulate. For me, English is actually, there's no surprise why English is one of the most dominant languages in the world. It's because it has a purpose. It's direct. It has no nonsense. He, she, they try to do some other stuff with it, but put that away. But it's a very direct, specific language, and I like that actually. And I'm sure everybody that understands that beauty side of it loves it because it's a very straightforward language that works for everyone. And then on the side of that, you can learn some other language. Like I said, Spanish can take you for a ride. Like we can, yes, it use like Dean was saying, you read some kind of poem. This guy will take you for, it's true, thousands of words on a ride. By the time you're finished the poem, you're like, you're either buying the next book or you're planning on living on some Spanish speaking country. Something is going to happen, but it's a very influential language as well. So I love romantic languages. I actually do really enjoy how the English is very like straightforward. I love that side of it. And I believe that cultures have to be like safe. We have to protect them somehow, regardless of which one it is. Like the guys from Zimbabwe, we have to let them be. If they want to keep living in caves, hey, let them live in caves. What do you care? You let that guy live in his cave. If you're Mexican, let the Mexican have his 5 girlfriends and 1 wife. Hey, let this guy be. Uh, it's because at the end of the day, it is more. It doesn't sound like it's including everyone, but at the end of the day, it's more inclusive. If you let somebody else be, you are the way you want to be, and then you want to explore somebody else's, it is extremely inclusive. So, and diverse. Otherwise, it would be boring if everybody was the same. That
if it was fully homogenized and everybody was the same and
yeah, like if humans by as an entity were like, oh, like let's say I'm an alien, and then I come and then I see, oh, this is how humans are. I will not even entertain you guys, like not even like for like 1 second. I'm like, oh, this is how humans are. This is so fucking boring. Let's go to another planet. But at least you come here as an alien and you're like, oh, this one is interesting. Let's see. This one sucks. No problem. Let them be. What about this one? There's so much you can actually see, learn, and explore. It's actually so there's so much beauty in it.
well, it's
Yeah,
wonderful.
that's funny. That's funny you say that. Jonathan, I've heard a joke, and the joke goes, why don't aliens come to Earth? And the answer is because they're looking for intelligent life. So yeah, just
It is
to what
fun
you
to
were saying.
explore the different language and cultures, the different food, the different way people approach the world. And it is definitely different in different parts, but we can have grace and appreciation for how other people live. And as you say, Jonathan, choose how we live. And in coaching, we help you pay attention and reflect back the choices you may unconsciously be making. And your language is part of that sort of secret code. The last thing I'll mention that we didn't talk about was light language. So some of the coaches that work with us speak in what's called light language. And that's nonverbal, non-logos kind of heart-based language that's largely intuitive. And so that's a spiritual practice, speaking in light language. So yeah, so many different kinds of language, including that. Brian, you want to share your final thoughts or anything else you wanted to say?
Sure, yeah, I think it's been a great discussion. I think everyone brought up some great points. Um, yeah, I'll just mention a few other things which we can add to it. So if you think about like Italian, right? When they speak, there's a lot of hand gestures. There's kind of this feeling you gotta be like, hey, what are you talking
Mamma
about?
mia.
You know, there's this feeling like when you speak Italian, you have to like get into it with the hands as you say something. And just imagine how that would feel if you grew up in that, like what the feeling of conversation would be like when everyone's doing this, you know? Um, it shapes your reality, right? So this is somewhat stereotypical, maybe it's wrong, but like in French, right? Kind of the stereotype is they have a way of sort of like smoking, drinking coffee, complaining about things, and just enjoying complaining about things, you know? Smoking, this guy Macron, he does nothing. I disagree. He does less than nothing. You know, they kind of have this thing, and you're enjoying complaining with each other as you enjoy the cigarette and the coffee. And that's a way of being in the world. That's a way of being in reality. Um, there's so many different possibilities, right? That different cultures have created. So that's pretty cool to think about. I'll mention something here. There was a author, an American anarchist author named Edward Abbey. And so one time he was asked what his religion was, and his answer was Paiute. So I'll just bring this up to add to this. Paiute was a Native American tribe, and they had the same name for their tribe, was the same name for their language, and it was the same name for their land. All of those things were called Paiute. So the people, the language, and the land, it's just all Paiute. So why is that? Well, they felt like the people and the land and the language were all the same. So they had a lot of, um, I did a little bit of research on it, looked it up. They had some typical tribal views like that everything in nature had a spirit. Their name for that was called Pua, which is like the life force that's in everything. So there was life force in the mountains and life force in the trees and life force in the animals, life force in humans and life force in the wind. And, you know, they felt like if you spent time with these things, you would connect to it, which is a typical Native American kind of viewpoint. And if you spent time with the land, you would connect to the land. So they felt like we live on the land, we connect to land, so we're the same as the land. So it was the same name for the land and the people. And they felt like their language comes from that feeling, from the feeling of being connected to this land as these people. The language comes from there. That's the way they speak. So think of how that shapes your reality, your worldview. If you felt like you were the same as the land and you're the same as the spirit and everything, you connect to the spirit and everything. And that's a whole different way to exist in reality, right? There were different tribes that had these kinds of feelings about reality and feelings about life and viewpoints about it. And yeah, I think so. I don't, maybe this is somewhat off, but here's my feeling. I feel like the reason he said that was his religion is he loved how they would just live and just they were sort of were playing with reality. They were communing with it. Like I think in English, we really struggle to think of the world or reality as a playground, as something you can just connect to. and commune with and be with and play with. We don't think of reality that way. Um, and I think he really like admired that. And they would, they did sports and they would dance and they would sing and they felt the a special life force was in all those things. There's a special life force in dancing. There's a special life force in singing. There's a special life force in telling our stories. And they would gather around and tell stories to each other. And so he sort of admired that way of living. And I think that's why he said that. To some extent, I agree with that. I think that's pretty cool. Um, so different ways of being in the world, different ways of experiencing reality connects to the language we speak, right? And yeah, I just think it's cool to mention that. So that's all for me.
People get a hold of you.
You can reach me through alifedesign.org or my Instagram is Special K Coaching.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Jonathan, you want to share any final thoughts and tell us how to get a hold of you?
Final thoughts. I would recommend that if you have never been outside, regardless of which bubble you were born into, because this can be reaching who knows who from who knows where. But if you have never been outside of your bubble, meaning the city, actually, I can start with the city, baby steps. If you have never been outside of your city, I will recommend you one time book a bus trip or like a flight if you can afford it, train, but go outside of your main born place bubble. And then from that, you will see the beauty of expanding your own way of thinking because you will find out that even between one city and another, humans they do things completely different. Like the salsa they put in the tacos in Mexico from one place to another one, they're like completely different. You're like in two different universes. The way they cook something is completely different. The way the woman looks, some other ones are like they look like this, more to your taste. Who knows? So ex- just get outside of your main bubble. From there, you will realize that there is so much things you've never even imagined that were possible, and it will actually bring a sense of it will actually free you, liberate you from a lot of like negative self-talk because you might find out that some other people are quote unquote worse than you. So you're like, oh, I felt there. I thought I was the bad guy. No, these guys are fucking worse. Who knows? Like it's all kinds of things that you will find out if you actually just get away from your main bubble, and that is some recommendation that I have, regardless of like if it's a city. If you can go outside of the country to some other place, even better. Take the risk. You might die in the process, but we're going to all die anyways, so it's worth it. You can find me or reach me out at Jonathan R Coaching on Instagram, also alifedesign.org. You can find me inside of that platform as well.
All the contact information will be in the show notes. Thanks so much. I guess you want us to be blessing us with our language rather than cursing ourselves. Think about use your words to bless you. And Dean, some final thoughts and how people find you.
Well, I would just say as a single sort of tip to leave, which is to encourage people to be mindful about their language, because remember that they're creating, they're not just rambling. And two is I would encourage people to think about how they could speak in a way that reflects their values and their goals instead of their programming. And to pause and wonder, why do I say it that way? Why do I use this phrase with myself? Why do I sort of construct my understanding in this particular way? And kind of in doing that, try to move to a higher level of awareness of what you're doing habitually. And because then you can change. You can find me at deanabbott.com, at alifedesign.org, or on Twitter at deanabbott.
Very good. Thank you so much. Well, I appreciate this discussion about a language and culture. I know when we work in coaching, we can catch points of view, or as you mentioned, the ruts or sort of habitual thinking, and reflect it back. When your family considers you the neat one, the party one, the dumb one, the smart one, and you speak that to other people, sometimes they'll be perplexed, like, why do you call yourself that? What are you talking? Oh, that's how I was held in my family, or that's the kind of grades I got in school. So we encourage you to work with a coach, write down your thoughts, and then examine those with a little bit of discernment about maybe all these things I tell myself are not true, or I could change them. It was great to talk with you guys today. We'll see you all the next time.